restrict the remarks for up to 3 minutes. And we'll start with Sarah. Do we have anyone who signed up for this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one person signed up for public comment.
Welcome, John.
Good evening. I'm Yona Bromberg-Gaver, president of Ask Me Local 1808, now representing more than 400 staff members for the library. As a content note, my remarks tonight will touch on suicide. Many institutions that provide support both have barriers to access and then stop helping the moment the work is out of scope. By being a space for free information access, the library defies that pattern. One of my favorite tools to use with patrons is the phrase, "You can always come back for more help." It's the core feature of the library's ability to provide resilience. Being a beacon of resilience attracts despair. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of despair in the world right now, and our ability as the library to provide joy and belonging in the face of strife is our strength. But it also has significant costs on the community and especially on staff. Staff accumulate vicarious trauma. We're sometimes the main social contact for someone who overshares about their extremely serious life problem. We can suggest resources, help them find relevant information, but we do not control the solutions and see the patrons we love go through extremely hard things. We also experience acute trauma from direct exposure to violence, both directed at us and between community members. Violence, trauma, and despair circling around is dangerous, and we need to take it extremely seriously. The events of Saturday, May 16th, here at MLK Library underscore the need for management to seriously shift its approach to this. I had been looking forward to working at Trans Pride for months. That my workplace hosts this amazing event for my community, and that I get to be deeply involved and give a talk about all the great trans books that are in our collection, which I've read in the last year, has been such a source of joy, belonging, and resilience to, especially when other parts of our life feel less similar. But that all got disrupted when we had to evacuate the 5th floor and then close the building in order to save someone who is close to jumping off this building. I appreciated Rich's message to staff this past Friday, stating that management is considering a broad variety of interventions. But I am frustrated that it took shutting down a high-profile event and several blocks of downtown to devastate this case. Similar attacks by members of the public have occurred several times in the past 2 years. And one person has died. Staff told me they warned of this problem during the design phase of this building, that the library attracts this if they not have such dangerous features without protections. We strongly support possible dangers that would reduce or eliminate these risks. But the staff desperately needs support too. One significant predictor of PTSD is whether someone feels supported by their network in the aftermath of trauma as they experience acute stress reactions. Library management has repeatedly failed to provide that support, and members have experienced PTSD as a result, some to a disabling extent. That pattern repeated in this instance, and we continue to seek much better support from management. Joy, resilience, and belonging don't come from books or from the buildings. They come from the library workers. We provide the support to our community members and to each other as colleagues. Our frontline staff have been the only real sense of support that I've gotten from this institution in the aftermath of that incident. We'll be looking for significant changes to the after-incident procedures for management, and we seek your support for that. Had we been engaged in developing the strategic plan, that would have been my biggest piece of feedback. We cannot be resilient. We cannot keep saving people's lives if you continue to rely on our uncompensated, unsupported trauma. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, young.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we will take action to approve the meeting minutes from March 25th. If there are no comments, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Well, I move that we approve the minutes.
Second. I second it.
All those in favor of supporting of approving the meeting minutes for March, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. So the meeting minutes have been approved for March. Next, we'll transition to the chair's report, which is really exciting. I think this is the first time we're outnumbered. Previously, my previous 5-6 years on the board has been male dominated. So, so we welcome the influx of estrogen. So, I want to welcome Christy Whitfield and Miss Holly Flood. Christy's a Ward 5 resident. She comes to us with a career spanning the nonprofit, for-profit, and government sectors. Before it was cool, Christy had her first food truck I can remember with Curbside Cupcake. If you've been in DC for a while, you might have seen that. She served as the director of the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, where she launched one of our favorites, Art All Night. So really happy to have Christy here. She's currently the Chief Impact and Partnerships Officer for the Nathan Cummings Foundation. And not to be outdone, Holly, Ward 1 resident, who comes to us with over 30 years of experience managing and administering government and foundation grants and contracts. So we have 2 new board members who have really come with a wealth of knowledge and experience that we hope will further elevate this board. So really excited about that. She's lived all over the world, managing international development, humanitarian assistance, and social service programs. She currently works as a grants and corporate relations specialist at Christ House, which is a nonprofit located in Adams Morgan that provides medical respite care and wraparound services for people experiencing homelessness in DC. So welcome. Angie, welcome. Then we have 2 other items that we'll have to take action on as a board, and they are, first, we'll have to approve the board bylaws, the change to the board bylaws to align with the current practices. The second is to approve a change in library passport acceptance office fees, and Rich will talk a little bit about that in the executive director's report. And lastly, just want to alert the board that the executive committee is trying to plan a summer happy hour for the board. It's something that I definitely want to do a lot more as the chair, get us together more, and if alcohol is present, that's okay too. But building more camaraderie with the board, I think, will put us in the right direction, and it'll also include a preview tour of the Southeast Library, which is slated to open later this year. That concludes the chair's report, and I will pass it to Rich for the executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. A few things. I should say I don't anticipate this meeting will go past 7, but if it does, at least I have to go, and Joy Mex will come take my place at the table. And Andrew, I don't know if you have to leave at 7 as well.
Let's just try to get done before.
Okay, good. First thing I'll say is that you've all received an invitation to next Friday's opening of the new exhibit, District Vibes, American Pride. I hope that you guys can make it. It's at 6 p.m., Friday, June 5th. Monica, who is part of our exhibits team, was just showing me some of the cool things that we will have on display. Everything from sports to music and innovation and a bunch of other things. So we're really excited about it and hope you guys can make it. Next, I need to tell the board that last month we received a space naming request from the Tenleytown Historical Society. It is recommending that the main meeting room of the Tenley Library be named for Jean Pablo, who is the founder of the Friends of the Tenleytown Library. Jean passed in 2021. Per the naming policy approved by the board, we will begin an evaluation process that includes community engagement. We will bring a recommendation to the Facilities Committee and then ultimately to the full board for a vote sometime this fall. Next, I know we're not going to have a standard budget report tonight beyond what was submitted in your packet, but I just wanted to inform the board, if you're not following the council deliberations very closely, that last week the Committee on Human Services, which is the committee under which the library resides, issued a committee report recommending a significant restoration of the proposed reductions to the library budget And it also identifies funding from the Committee on Transportation for the operating impact of capital for the new and expanded Southeast Library, which is opening later this summer. So nothing, of course, is final until it's final and everyone votes and Congress says yes, I assume. But as we've been led to believe throughout these deliberations, we think that the library is going to be in good shape despite the challenging economy that the district is facing at the moment. And finally, and again, this is probably mostly for you, Holly and Christy, it's customary at most of our board meetings for DCPL staff, whether it's me or someone else, to give a short presentation and lead a board discussion on a timely topic. In the past year, we've presented on public safety, on staffing and hiring efforts, the new DCPL strategic plan, among some other initiatives. This evening, in light of some recently proposed legislation, which is called the Library eBook Licensing Fairness Amendment Act, which we anticipate will pass very soon, we thought it would be a good idea to give board members sort of a crash course on ebooks in libraries and why DCPL describes the current situation as a crisis, and every library in the country describes this as a crisis. So we thought that it would benefit all of us to learn a little bit more about the unique proposition that exists between libraries and publishers when it comes to electronic content. So here to lead the conversation are London Gillespie, who is our Director of Collection Development, and April Jerome, who is our Electronic Resources Librarian. They're going to lead a short talk, and feel free to ask questions as we go through.
First, can you explain why it's a crisis?
I'll tell you why it's a crisis. It's about money, ultimately.
Awesome.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. I'm London Gillespie, the Director of Collections, as Rich stated. This is April Jerome, the Electronic Resource Librarian for the agency. So we are here to talk about ebooks and libraries and the impact that all of this has on us. So today we'll cover what we know about our users, the growth and demand for ebooks, lending models, how we acquire books and that selection process, our costs compared to costs for consumers, our approach to print spending versus digital spending, and then we will summarize Councilmember Fruman's ebook bill.
All right, so I've got the beginning slides. So the library began offering digital titles in 2007 via Overdrive. And in that first year, we circled about 23,000 items. Fast forward almost 20 years later, we're circling 2.6 million items. In 2017, about 10 years ago, Overdrive launched their app called Libby.
Slightly. Oh, I guess we can see right here.
It eventually did replace the Overdrive, their legacy app. Libby has become synonymous with public lending or lending of titles to library card holders. So when people think about ebooks, they're checking out from Libby. So we have thousands of visitors every day using Libby, and we also use that as an opportunity to highlight some of our programs that we have in the library. So system-wide events like DC Reads, Discover Summer, also popular events as well. So while they're in there checking out ebooks, we're also reminding them of the great programs the library has as well. So we acquire about 3,100 new users every month. And this is an increase from 2018, where we were averaging about 1,400 new users every month. You'll see the big spike, of course, is when we were in shutdown and no one could come into the libraries. A lot of people were starting to discover our electronic collection. And then it leveled off, and it's just continued to grow since then. So what do these new users become? They become our unique users. So these are users that are visiting our Overdrive collection, our Libby collection, every month. In 2018, we were averaging about 18,000, and then now we're averaging almost 60,000 unique users every month. We do see that kind of big spike last year. That's a bit of a false spike. We migrated systems, and in doing so, it kind of re-registered everyone. And so that's why you then see the drop off, and we're leveling off where we had some expired users. We did a big marketing campaign, brought a lot of them back into the library to renew their card, and we're starting to go up again. And if you're interested in maybe who those unique users are, we did do a breakdown of last month and last month alone, because that was kind of the quick data that we could get. About 76% were stated that they lived in DC, and then we've got 11 and 12 equal percentage from Maryland and Virginia. And so when we look at those users, like what are they doing over a 6-month period? We do have our casual users that are checking out maybe 1 or 2 to 3 items every month or over a 6-month period. And then we do have those super users where they're checking out 6 plus, 16 plus. We've got 10,000 users that are just constantly using our collection. I'm not sure what that, okay. Hopefully that'll go away. And so what they're checking out, right? So what format? The majority is ebooks. Then the next section is audiobooks following after that. And you'll see that magazines is actually kind of big. And you're like, what's going on there maybe? Magazines are unlimited checkouts. You could check out every issue that you want. You don't have a limit. Whereas ebooks and audiobooks, we do have a limit. You can check out 10 at a time. And so that's why magazines tend to be a little bit larger. And so what are they checking out? If you look here, I was trying to show a couple of things on this slide. When we're looking at total circulation, adult fiction is the most popular, right? Followed by adult nonfiction. And then juvenile actually outpaces young adult by just a little bit. But we do have a robust juvenile collection. And then when we look at maybe across the material audience, ebooks are, adult fiction and then to adult nonfiction. But then you do see that adult nonfiction in the audiobooks, there is more of an interest there across all the audiences. And then we have just some top subjects that people are interested in. We've got romance, of course, at the top for our adult fiction. We've got biography and autobiography, which likely drives our audiobook usage in that category. And so this is just showing our growth in demand over the years. And this is just the past 7 years. We were averaging about 73,000 checkouts in 2018, and we're now averaging almost 237, which contributes to that 2.6 million checkouts each year. And you can see that it just continues to grow, our ebooks and our audiobooks, kind of on the same trajectory. So just the number just keeps going up. And this just shows we do have a digital title circulation that is pretty interactive. I wasn't able to kind of link to it through here, unfortunately, but it does show like as every minute passes, if you just look at it for 15 seconds, that thing at the top just continues scrolling. People are constantly placing holds, checking out items. We've had, all-time 18 million checkouts, all-time holds, 11 million checkouts or holds. And so all this to say, it can be a little difficult to manage our digital collection because it isn't the same as just purchasing a print book. Publishers have a lot of rules around how we can purchase and license the material. This chart, try to make it pretty. It just shows that like really nice copy at the top is that, sometimes we can get that one copy, one user, which means it never expires. We buy it and we get to keep it, which is what a lot of titles used to be. A lot of publishers used to offer that model. And then over the years, the top, big publishers, they started offering this metered access. So these are titles that we purchase and then they expire after either time or number of checkouts. So that we'd have to repurchase them. So we're constantly having to repurchase this, sometimes, especially if it's 26 checkouts, sooner than we would like. But they have started to offer these other models where it's like concurrent users, meaning we buy a license and we can offer it to 100 people all at once, which is really preferable to our customers. They don't want to wait super long. The other options are the simultaneous use. And that way we can buy like a package of titles and it's unlimited. People can just check those out, no waits. We get really lucky with some titles that become really popular and we're able to have that. And it just looks like we're like miracle workers. We're just offering it. And really it's just we lucked out with that package. The other model, of course, is the cost per circ that we use for our DC Reads programs or other like maybe author talks, things like that, where we're trying to offer the ebook at just more, like 500 copies so that everyone can check it out all at once. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, So now we're going to talk about the selection process. So just like our print selectors, April also has to kind of determine how she's going to utilize her budget. So in addition to the holds, figuring out what are customers waiting for and do we have enough in demand. She's also thinking about the new titles. So looking at journals, what's coming out, what's being published. Are they being mentioned in newspaper articles, new and hot titles? She's also looking at expired content. So expired content is content that we've purchased on one of those licensing models that she's spoken about, and then knows it's been 12 months or 24 months, and we need to determine, okay, do customers still want this? Do we need to repurchase? And then listed there is our spending breakdown per month. So she's spending 76% of her budget on replacing holds, purchasing books to fill holds, 14% on expired copies, things that are now expired that our patrons do want, so she has to repurchase, and then 10% on the new titles, newly published stuff. So that's why we may see longer holds for new titles, because we're spending less there. Okay, and then this is our spending approach. So out of our total budget, we're allocating 65% of that to digital material. And digital material is Overdrive and Libby and our databases, Canopy, so all of our digital content. When we're looking at the budget and trying to figure out how we're placing print versus ebook, we're thinking about the cost, right? How much is the book the ebook versus the print, and then what is the demand for the ebook over the print. Also, we understand that a lot of our customers like digital and print, so we need to still have balanced collections both places. And thinking about database subscriptions, so every year we have to renew our databases. Figuring out, is the usage, are we justifying purchasing? What does the usage look like? So she's thinking about all of those things when purchasing. Our cost versus consumer cost. So this is kind of why all of this is a problem. So for Theo of Golden, we'll just use this example for this evening. Our cost for print for a hardcover is $15 because we get discounts for print materials. $20 for the paperback. Ebook, $60 for metered access for 2 years, and then we need to repurchase it. The audiobook is $90 each copy, compared to what consumers are paying. $30 for the hardcover, $20 for the paperback, $12 for the ebook, and $30 for the audiobook. And then they have that forever versus when we are purchasing it, we have to repurchase at a higher cost. So that's why this is all an issue, because we definitely see how consumer prices and library prices are different, and we are using a lot of our budget to be able to meet the demand for our digital. Also listed here, so for this book, we have 75 copies so far. We've spent, we spent $4,200 for that. Out of those copies, 5 are Lucky Day copies. Lucky Day copies mean you don't have to wait on hold for it. If you just get lucky and see that it's available, you can snag it and bypass the line. We like to have a little bit of those, because we can see hold lists be 30 days, So that is our consumer prices versus our prices. Metered access. Yes, metered access means after a certain amount of time, we have to repurchase those. Okay, so this is the summary of Councilmember Fruman's ebook bill. It basically prohibits the DC Public Library from entering or renewing licensing agreements with publishers that restrict our residents' access to books. So Publishers cannot ban the library from lending ebooks, limit the number of loans or the loan period, limit how many copies that we can purchase when they first release books. They can't upcharge us or stop the library from making preservation copies. They can't stop us from communicating with other libraries about what their contract details. They can't force short-term contracts. They can't make the whole contract invalid if one thing is illegal. So all of these things basically ensure that DC residents can continue to acquire ebooks as the shift kind of is happening towards digital content, making sure that we can afford the books to be able to give to our customers. And the bill takes place or activates when 10 other states with a combined population of 50 million have enacted similar laws. There's, strength in numbers. The idea is that if a lot of libraries have the same mind, then something needs to change because we're all like, we cannot afford this. So that is, in a nutshell, ebooks. Any questions?
Maybe I'll just say that, so the legislation that it is close to passing closely mirrors legislation that passed last summer in Connecticut, almost word for word. And again, the trigger is really the most important part. It's not the goal of the council to stop the library from licensing ebooks. The goal is for there to be this groundswell of support across jurisdictions to bring publishers to the table to think of a better model than what exists now. The problem really is that there's never been a dialogue in terms of what is fair for libraries to pay. And we understand that the lending model that libraries have, by virtue of there being no friction whatsoever to borrow an ebook, we know we can't just, here's one copy of that book and let's lend out 700,000 copies to everyone in DC, right, or everyone in the world for that matter. And that way publishers or authors, they sell one book and that's it. So friction is an important component, but all libraries want is a seat at the table to talk about what are some of those models that they talked about before that could be a little bit fairer, because it's gotten to the point, libraries like DC and many other libraries around the country are spending 60-70% of their collections budget on ebooks. And if we could spend all night here looking at other, as Chanel looks at his watch, let's not talk about this much more. You can break it down more granularly and see, well, who's borrowing ebooks, who's not borrowing ebooks. Kids are really the engine that's still powering our print books, but adults, for the most part, have gone the way of they want ebooks. So the purpose of the legislation is to bring municipalities together, put pressure on publishers to come up with better models that we consider to be more fair. I mean, frankly, we just want to be able to say that we were able to negotiate. Everything that is given to us now, everything that we pay for, are things that have been come up and more or less just given to us as this is the model. Yeah. And so there's not been that back and forth that really should be the way, any business and client relationship occurs.
Can you speak to reciprocity with Maryland, Virginia?
Yeah, so reciprocity does exist. We've got, if you live in any of the 7 counties that surround Washington, D.C., you have the rights of a D.C. Public Library cardholder. Similarly, D.C. residents have the same privileges in those municipalities. And you look at Montgomery County, I just know this off the top of my head, they spend about $11 million a year on books. We spend half of that. So, of course, you can argue one way, in many ways, about who's benefiting more from what municipality. But for the history of the library system, we have had that arrangement with our library systems because, we see library users as sort of regional users.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense for physical things where there's friction. You got to go to a place and get it. I don't think it makes sense ebook. Like it doesn't make sense for digital access because like right? Like I don't. Why would we pay? We sort of have to pay for them to use our books and.
Our philosophy has been that it averages out by virtue of DC residents borrowing Montgomery titles and Montgomery residents borrowing DC titles.
Is Libby segmented?
You can use your one Libby account and you can put in as many libraries, and
That's
it's
what I
seamless
use.
as the user.
So I use DC Public, I use PG County, I use the Maryland Consortium. So I'm jumping all over to see where Theo of Golden's going to be available, and I'm probably one of those people that check the audiobook out. But I'm kind of curious, out of the 10, how close are we to the 10 states embracing it to the threshold?
We're not super close right now.
No.
I'm surprised.
And I should say that the summary that they provided doesn't tell the whole story. There was some back and forth before the legislation was finalized, and the board plays an important role here. At the end of the day, the board has the final say in determining what is I forgot the term it used, like egregious, an egregious cost or egregious price.
Yeah.
So I think the board can ultimately say, Rich, you guys can keep on buying as long as we think it's fair. And I think that was the last bit of language put into the legislation to give the library the ability to not be in a position where it's like, oh my God, we can't buy ebooks any longer. So there's a lot of safeguards in the legislation.
Rich, I have a question. What do you think is the fair, like, how do we balance a public good and the need to not sort of undermine the profit of the author or what, things that are fair? What do you think is in an ideal world, and then what would you walk it back to that would be fair?
I mean, there's so many models. And by the way, when we're talking about the exorbitant price that we're paying, we're really talking about the big six publishers, so the main publishers of bestsellers. There are plenty of publishers who are just happy to get their books into libraries, and we've got the one copy, one user model. One possible solution is looking at the relicensing of material. So, okay, it's fine. Maybe a library has to spend $80 or $90 for something that you're spending $10 for as a consumer, but maybe we don't have to re-up.
Right, maybe it's a one-time.
Maybe it's a one-time thing and a much smaller re-up or something like that. So there are a million different levers that we can pull to just make it a little bit fairer.
Right, sustainable.
Yeah.
So the other question I think is probably for the two of you, which is, what is the average wait time like for the ebooks that you see?
It's 31 days.
It's currently 31. We've been able to bring that down.
Huh.
Now that's average over the whole collection, right?
Yeah, I
There
feel
are-
like I wait
Yes.
Right.
a lot
Right.
longer.
Yes, those are for the
I'm gonna
popular
do your thing.
titles. The wait is much longer, but we do have a really robust collection that has 0 wait time. So I
Right.
think that's what brings down
Yeah.
the average. But for those top,
Okay.
we have titles where we have thousands and thousands of holds, and it's like a whole you can't fill. So you have to stop purchasing at some point because you've got to be able to purchase
Other things,
books
right.
rather than just 200 copies for
Right, for the new
a new thing that costs
right.
$60 each copy.
Yeah.
I should say that, out of the libraries I'm shopping at to see what will be available first, we're usually the first ones to have it available. Well, the hold time's usually shorter compared to the others.
Well, and I guess my fear is it sort of induces demand then, right? So because you guys are doing a good job, we end up serving more people who are outside of the district.
I think, one takeaway that we can, and we've talked about this, in fact, we talked about this quite a bit when Tony Williams was on the board. We can do a deeper dive. There's some data that we might need our colleagues to provide us with. Look, at the end of the day, Montgomery County Public Library, PG County, we see ourselves as one big family. And we have never, the rights that we have in one, we have in all, right? It could be a meeting room booking, it could be a book. There's nothing different about your status. But to your point, Andrew, and it's a fair question, because we're being pinched to the point that we are, do we need to look at reciprocal borrowing and possibly add some additional friction? At the very least, we should be able to provide the board some data that suggests, hey, it's a wash, let's not worry about it, or this is a problem and maybe we need to create some levels of some additional friction levels for non-DC residents.
I think that's right. If it weren't a quarter of, if it were a smaller number too, then I probably wouldn't be worth it. But I mean, a quarter is a lot. That's.
Well, and it's growing, right? I think that's the demand is continuing to go. So I'll be interested if, what's your projection over, at what point do you see it, that ebooks or electronic books or audiobooks kind of
Like a 50-50.
I wonder.
Honestly, not until the pricing model changes, because we have to be
You
able
couldn't
to.
just can't meet it. 'Cause you
We can't,
meet it.
exactly, we can't meet it. I mean, if we're already spending 65 of the budget on digital, that is not good.
That's
I mean, we're doing a good job and we're able to also keep up with the print collection, but, if the shift goes, we're going to have to really think about that, because
I do want to say, I think you guys are doing an amazing job at collecting the information that's useful, but I think it would be very imperative for us to kind of look a little, it would be worth doing a little deep dive to see, because the numbers are, like Andrew said, I mean, it's like 0 to 100. It's too much. And the fact that anyone has access, I mean, even comparing our city to the other counties, we are still relatively small in comparison. So those are things that we maybe want to talk about as to how we can narrow that down.
Yeah, so we can take that back, and we'll let you know when we can produce something.
I just want to say one of my, I think I've mentioned this in a previous board meeting. One of the things that I find challenging with the Libby model is we also don't get the data. You don't get the relationship in the same way. But so I was really happy to see what you shared, where we can sort of at least push out information to try and build that relationship.
Yeah.
The
Overdrive, Libby has gotten better about personalization.
Yeah.
So that, and I remember when you said that, Andrew, that you're borrowing an ebook. It's like mentally it has no connection to the DC Public Library. Right. You're just borrowing an ebook. But they are doing better in terms of customizing and pushing programming and that sort of thing. And I think we will see more of that.
That was going to be my comment. But I had no idea what you did here. So I've seen you for years.
Well, I'm new in the role.
Okay. I'm new in this role too. So, how can we? I'm sort of looking at it from a different angle. How can we capitalize on some of these unique users? I know you said you've done some outreach, but I'm more thinking, how do we get them into the branch, right? For programs, for activities, for events.
And not to say that they aren't. They're just unique
meant,
Libby
no.
users.
Okay.
They can be both. They might be print users as well.
Yeah.
Unique just meaning sorry, I guess I could see how that. Yeah, unique. Yeah, not unique to Libby. Just 60,000 users are opening Libby and interacting with it in some way. They could also be checking out. That would be part of a deeper dive into who is using. Maybe there's probably a lot of overlap.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We do have a lot of people that come into DC to work, and that is one of the rules that you could get a library card if you have
If you work
in the city does swell.
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting as you dive into it. To me, it's less about us versus them, but more about you have to the value. If you want to borrow something in a DC Public Library, you come to the DC Public Library, right? Or do we?
No, we don't send books. We don't send physical
books.
material.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So there's a value in people being in the district doing this, and so I don't know. That's just it'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what you all find.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll let you know how long it will take us to produce something that is meaningful for you guys to look at.
Well, sorry, one other final question, Rich. I know it's come up at ULC. I'm on the board because of this of the Urban Libraries Council, so it's a national organization, and this has come up. And I know there's been forever lobbying at the federal level by ALA and others around this. is this state stuff happening because everyone's given up that the feds will ever be able to step in or care, or is there still potential there?
I haven't seen any real, and you guys follow this better than I do. I've not seen a lot on the federal level that would indicate there was some progress being made there. I do think that this will start at the local level. And I think once, and again, it's the spirit of this legislation, once we have 50, 75, 100 million people who are, may have their access blocked, there could be an outcry that there just hasn't been. So
I would imagine that everyone has the same problem we have, right? At whatever scale their system is.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
That said, and I've talked about this a million times, our collection budget is low compared to peer libraries. Like if our budget were $6 or $7 million, like peer cities like Boston or Denver, then the problem wouldn't be as severe. But
wouldn't it be? Because it seems like the demand is there. Like it seems to me that this is going to burst. Like the need is going to sort of push the budget wherever the budget is, and then the outcome is just the length of the wait, depending on where we.
Right.
I still argue for more money.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, always
It
more.
would help, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting, and I guess the other thing, and maybe just as a new board member, I'd be interested in, not in this moment, but like learning more about how we have the same conversations about the actual physical books, right? And like what that, how we balance that out, because I think like we don't want to move to a place where there's nothing here, right?
How do we capture
Yeah.
these users?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, we've got some amazing data about just people in the district and who borrows ebooks and who borrows print books. There's racial dynamic there, there's economic dynamic there. So to your point, we can't just go, even if ebooks were less expensive, you can't just go chasing them because you would be ostracizing a bunch of people who are not using ebooks.
Right.
Even if they had the chance to, they still prefer print.
Yes.
And that's something that we monitor as well.
Yeah, that data would be super interesting.
Can get that.
So it sounds like this is going to be an ongoing conversation.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you all
guys.
for your time.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to tee these up? Or do you want to? It's the
Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
The next item on the agenda, there are two board action items, neither of which is remarkable, and I hope that you all have had a chance to take a look. The library adopted new bylaws in 2021. In the 5 years subsequent, our general counsel and others have seen instances in which just terminology is not current to what we're using now. And so there was a lot of cleanup of our 2021 bylaws, and there was some clarification of what constitutes a quorum. There were a few weird instances where there would be a serious board action item could be done with 2 or 3 board members, like the firing of the director. And it would take many more board members to approve a simple, policy. So we provided in your packet a crosswalk so you could see for yourselves how unremarkable these changes are, but they do require a library vote. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, you can call for a vote.
So Rich has provided the background for these two votes. The first will be to codify the changes to the bylaws. So are there any questions or changes? Everyone get a chance to look over it?
Is the chief librarian and the executive director the same?
Yes.
So
That's
you're
one of the
both?
changes.
Okay, all right.
Holly, any highlighted point? So being no amendments, so we'll move to a voice vote to vote for bylaws. So first, I want to move to approve the updated bylaws. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
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 All right. So the bylaws have been approved. We have 5 people, so it passes. Got it. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this and read the directions at the same time. So, so that passes. The second is for the passport office. You wanna
Yeah, this is
background
also
about
very
that?
simple. You all know that we've got a passport acceptance office here on the second floor of MLK. It's a wonderful service for district residents. It's also a significant revenue generator for the library. What we are asking the board to do, because there has been a significant change in mailing fees that the library is currently absorbing, because the board needs to vote on any changes to any fee structure that the library implements. So rather than the board voting, oh, so, mail is going to cost us $3 more, let's vote on $3. The new document states that the executive director has the discretion to change the price of mailing based on what USPS is doing. And that's really the only change that we are proposing here.
Any questions about that? Rich gave the background. All right. So we will, all those in favor of adopting the changes to the past, I'm sorry. First, does anyone move to adopt the policy, to approve the policy?
So moved.
Anyone second?
I'll second.
All right, excellent. All those in favor of adopting the changes to the passport rate policy, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Next, we will move to the board committee reports. And I'm sorry, I didn't formally reintroduce Andrew, but Andrew, welcome. And Andrew's our new vice chair. So now we'll move to the board committee reports, and we'll start with the contracts review committee with Maria. Peace.
Good evening. The Contracts Review Committee met virtually in early May and voted to approve 2 council packages. The first virtual meeting was to approve DCPL 2025C0018 for janitorial services at the MLK Library. The contract with TRI Consulting, Inc. was initially approved by the DC Council on May 10, 2025. The option year 1 modification is for $1,074,244.92 and would run from June 28, 2026 to June 27, 2027. The second virtual meeting was to approve contract DCPL 2026, C as in cat, 0014, for janitorial and supplemental services at DC neighborhood libraries. The contract would run from the date of the award through 1 year thereafter and is in the amount of $1,872,584.72 to cover all labor and supplemental services. To cover all labor, management, supervision, equipment, materials, and supplies necessary to provide janitorial and supplemental services at DC neighborhood libraries. This concludes the Contract Review Committee report.
Thank you, Maria. Any questions?
Maybe just as a reminder for you both, the library has independent procurement authority, which is great, something that we cherish, but we do, there is a contracts review committee because by law, any contract worth over $1 million has to be approved by the board's contracts review committee. It does not have to be approved by the full board. And then after it's approved by the contracts review committee, then we can send it to council for their typically passive approval. So it's just an additional eyes.
So even with the independent authority, does it, my question is going to be the same question every single time we do this, which is like, is this a local business? for obviously reasons.
We follow all of the
all
districts.
So it's either local or it has 35%.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
But correct, we cannot deviate from the mayor's or the city's,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah. And in fact, Tornea, we typically,
I love it.
However, it doesn't hurt to ask. So
Yeah.
that's one of my
I'm gonna
passionate points.
I'm gonna stay on brand. I'm gonna stay on brand.
You have a partner in supporting local businesses.
All right.
So
Tornea, by the way, is our wonderful Chief Procurement Officer at DCPL.
and keep these are all right now. Maria's on this, but I think we'll probably be reviewing committees soon. So if there's a committee that you have some interest in, that's
January.
January. Yep. So we'll be reviewing that soon. I'm sorry, hit the pivot. So Sarah, I know we just did this with the bylaws, but so the requirement is now for quorum, what percentage?
So there's some math involved, but quorum is
Just
is half of the number of active trustees plus one. So in this case, 5.
Gotcha. Half number of active trustees plus one. Yeah. Plus one.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
if we wanted to do something with Rich, add another one.
Gotcha. So come to the meetings, please. So next, the finance committee in Danella's absence. Do we have any?
Danella said that everything is self-explanatory in the report and no need to discuss
The
unless
report.
there were questions.
Excellent. All right. The facilities committee, Andrew.
Thank you. So first, I will just say, Christy, if you look at the facilities committee, there's some really good reporting, well, for both of you, about the work that's undergoing major construction projects. But Christy, there's a small local business thing. You can look in, I'm looking at Eastern Mark, or Southeast Library right now, and you can actually see the percentage that go to each of the small local businesses and who they are. And this is something I feel like, Chanel, maybe you pushed on when you were the facilities committee chair, and we keep making sure that we are aware of in terms of the facilities work. So the facilities committee met on May 20th. Some really exciting things are that the Southeast Library and the Petworth Library are getting very close to reopening. In the summer, we don't have a date yet, but we will let everybody know. Those will both be, I think, really great new, well, Southeast Library is a very large expansion of the previous library. But I think even Petworth, if you look at the photos and how it's coming, I think it'll make it really nice, a good feel. Similarly, so Petworth was a renovation. Shaw Library, also a renovation. That closed in May and will likely be opening in early 2027. Because it was funded by ARPA, has some, we just got to get it done. I think we mentioned at the budget, Edgewood Eckington has money in the proposed budget, so we'll see how that goes for acquisition. If we get that, those discussions will continue, and that would be a standalone library next to a larger mixed-use development on Rhode Island Avenue, I believe. Yep. Okay. Thank you. And then Congress Heights is going slowly because of all the people, all the parties involved, but it is moving. Chevy Chase, we're sort of getting to the point of actually doing I think the best part, which is figuring out what the needs are for the community and beginning to actually design the library space. There's been a lot of focus on the technical, process of doing a mixed-use development that includes housing and community center and a library. So that's that. But the great part about the library design is starting now. And there's a meeting on June 9th for that. And then Deanwood, it's continuing. There was an initial community meeting, continuing coordination with WMATA, and Rosedale coordination continues. I'll just make one other note, which is I think we're trying to also make sure that from the committee perspective, we're also looking at the major systems upgrades. So this is new construction, major rehab, or reconfiguration. There's also places where there's systems being put in. Sometimes that involves a library closing. So just trying to make sure that we're aware of that. And also, there's things like Mount Pleasant's getting a great new landscaping plan that folks should know about. It'll make the library nicer. So that's something that we'll be working on over the summer.
Is Shaw just interior?
Shaw's an interior. Did I say Shaw's getting landscaping? No. Did I say Mount
No, you
Pleasant?
said it right.
No, I was
Okay,
just-
sorry.
I was
Okay.
asking about Shaw.
I'm sorry. Oh, it's Shaw needs landscape. Yeah, well. Yeah, I believe the Shaw, we can talk, I believe Shaw's mostly an interior reconfiguration. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a smaller, I mean, if you look at the board book, the project size is much, for Southeast Library, it's 38 million. For Shaw, it's 4 million, or 8 million. So it's just a different order of magnitude.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions from facilities for Andrew? Good to see Jazz Spreet in the building. Next, Roswell with the Peakery Committee.
Yes, so P3 is for Christy and Holly, the Programs, Partnerships, and Performance Committee. We met on May 8th. We covered a lot, so I'm going to try to fly through all this so we could be out of here before 7. It covered the fiscal year 25 revenue generating program. And here's the kind of the report from it. The library generates revenue from event rentals, the cafe at MLK and catering, the passport acceptance program, as Rich was talking about, and the pop-up retail events. The total revenue in fiscal year 25 was approximately $1.2 million, just a little over 1% higher than FY 24. The increase was attributable to higher revenues from the passport acceptance office and pop-up retail, while event rentals and cafe and catering generated slightly lower revenues. There were 9% fewer event rentals in FY 25 compared to FY 24, generating 1% less revenue. Event rentals for corporations increased the most, followed by DC nonprofits. All the other categories of event rentals decreased, notably by private individual rentals and by non-DC government agencies. These decreases may be due to economic pressures. Customer service, though, survey scores are high and improved over the prior fiscal year. The number of rentals are constrained by library programs that also use some of the most popular event spaces, such as the auditorium. The revenue and number of passport applications processed increased, attributable to the increase in staffing, with the 3 positions being converted from half-time to full-time midway through last fiscal year. Further growth tied to the staffing increase is expected. In addition, 1 staff member is certified to serve customers in Spanish, and the office has been assisting 20 or more Spanish speakers a week, which is good. Event rental revenues are designated to support exhibits, cultural programs, and related admin needs such as furniture and equipment. These funds supported the Negro Motorist Green Book exhibition, the Art All-Night programs, the Starfest, World Pride programs, and many other exhibitions here at MLK and, of course, the neighborhood libraries. In FY 25, only $700,000 of the authorized budget amount of $850,000 was spent due to a citywide spending freeze and the timing of waiver requirements. The mayor's office has typically authorized an expenditure budget that is less than the amount of revenue generated and has also swept substantial amounts of unspent carryover funds. The goal going forward is to, the goal going forward is to maximize spending during the fiscal year to reduce vulnerable carryover funds. The next steps include piloting passport acceptance services at neighborhood libraries, planning for a more permanent retail strategy, and reviewing and recommending updated retail rates. From the Freedom and Resistance Exhibit Evaluation Overview, DCPL engaged an external evaluator for the Freedom and Resistance exhibition. The findings are substantially based on 52 visitor survey respondents. The evaluation found that the exhibition was a success by communicating complex history with clarity, drawing new audiences to DCPL, and measurably strengthening the library's civic and cultural identity. The key findings include, and I'll fly through this, 52% came specifically for this exhibition, 58 were return visitors to DCPL exhibits, 42% were first-timers. DCPL has built a loyal exhibition audience, as you can see, and 81% rated it easy or very easy to understand. 77% spent over 20 minutes, and 27 spent over an hour at the exhibition, which is, I think, pretty good. The youth artwork component was the most compelling and the strongest emotional element, and wayfinding challenges persist but are always solvable. We had new business. The library is launching a G Street working group to address rising safety issues and activity outside the MLK library along the G Street corridor from Metro Center to Gallery Place.
that is negatively impacting the library from programming to hosting events. The first meeting co-hosted with the downtown BID convenes representatives from city agencies, including MPD, neighboring businesses, institutions, and residents, with the goal of identifying sustainable and compassionate solutions to ensure that all visitors feel welcome here to MLK. And one last thing, the Library Services Performance Report, a copy of the FY26 Q2 Library Services Performance Report is included in the packet, and a new metric has been added, the number of temporary exhibits and exhibit days by location. And that concludes the P3 committee report.
P3 is where it's at.
Yes.
Thank you, Roswell. And the performance report is really good. We advocated for that. So that's, thank you for it. Where'd she go?
Oh, she went to the Springsteen concert.
She went to the Springsteen concert.
I gave her a shout out. She's not here. Sorry to do this, Martha, Monique, but I saw you here. Any update on the new policy? The code of conduct? I know this is sort of impromptu, but with
We're giving a webinar tomorrow.
open for the public? Gotcha. But I mean, it's been fully implemented. We get it.
Fully implemented. We've had excellent feedback from our staff in terms of the customer education campaign and the ability to enforce the code of conduct by and large. Of course, there have been challenges.
Of course, yeah.
As our customers understand and as we communicate our updated rules. But by and large, it has been a success.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Next, get to hear from some of our friends. Mr. Patterson from the Friends Group. Some of our friends. See what I did? Welcome, Mark.
Good evening. I want to talk briefly here about the Branch Equity Fund. In bygone days, it was a request to contribute to the summer reading program. With the $30,000 contributed by Friends groups across the district, with a dollar for dollar match by the DCPL Foundation, the $60,000 total for the Branch Equity Fund comes to less than 0.1% of DCPL's overall budget. I will admit that I have concerns about the future of the fund, specifically whether Friends groups across DC have the capacity to contribute that amount year after year after year. I had a conversation with Rob Hartman of the DCL Foundation about this just yesterday, and I imagine we'll huddle a bit more after this meeting's over. For the Federation's officers, it was the principal topic of discussion during last night's Zoom call, and I imagine we'll bat this around some during our Federation meeting in June. I believe we can meet our goals this year. We can and will certainly make a good faith effort. But there's a handful of library branches without Friends groups at all, which places a bigger burden on all the others, and the ones that are adept at fundraising are either feeling the pinch themselves or wondering why they are expected to shoulder so much of the cost. And for those Friends groups in the middle, they've been operating on a model of keeping Friends membership dues low so as to not exclude anyone, and selling used books at low prices to get them into people's hands. It's a conundrum we've barely grasped, let alone tackled. Well, nobody said the job was easy, but I thought it was worth you knowing, and that's my report.
Mark, question. The funds are voluntary, the contributions,
Correct,
right?
yes.
So what are the expectations? To match previous years or just whatever you can?
Well, there is a goal, $60,000, they said 30 and 30.
30, so that's
and,
the goal. And some are contributing more than others.
Some
as expected, though.
That's right. Some can contribute more than others, but.
And the distribution is.
And, we are not fundraising professionals, as my report obviously shows.
Doing a great
and
job.
I know also that for many fundraising efforts, in order to raise money, you've got to spend money. And if you don't have the money to spend to raise the funds that you need, then that sort of becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
Are we limited to our fundraising efforts?
Well, that's why I was huddling with Rob to see what we can do to boost our capacity to raise revenue if we're going to maintain this branch equity fund. I mean, it's a great concept, and I think it's a good thing for branch managers to have some autonomy. I thought they had plenty of autonomy already, but apparently these little $500 cards every quarter give them even more. It's like an invisible force field of autonomy. I don't know, but anyway, if we can't deliver as friends, then we're going to have conversations with more than just Rob Hartman about how to give the librarians the autonomy they need, and what DCPL as an institution can do to that the friends by themselves obviously cannot do if it comes to that.
Just really, the branch equity fund allows the Friends group to give these gift cards for, not gift cards, to give, you explain it. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's our program.
So
he's next.
So Rob will come on up. Come on down. Rob will give an update. Rob will give an update from the foundation.
Let's get rid of the misinformation here. All right. Hello, everybody. Great to see everybody. Hard to believe I've been doing these meetings now 7 years. So welcome, Christy. Welcome, Holly. Sure, we can start off with our one of our favorite topics, the Branch Equity Fund.
Popular.
And for the new board members, so how the Library Foundation works is that we take in requests from the library and from Rich and his team, and we work with everybody within that team to figure out what's needed that can be funded privately or should be funded privately versus what gets funded by government funds. And so typically what we're funding are enhancements, expansions, or innovations within the library programs. And so on this particular case, it was brought to us that from Martha and her team that branch managers could use the ability to have some, and I don't like using the word petty cash, but basically to have some petty cash where they can purchase things that they need for their branch without red tape and without having to ask for government funds. Because government funds can't buy food, government funds can't do things. So it enhances what they're doing. They've done some amazing things, and the stories, and Martha can provide some of the backdrop on what it's actually gone towards. But it's everything from, giving a kid a snack who needs one while he's doing his homework, to creating story walks and other wonderful things. So when this idea came to us, as you know, we have to raise money for all of our programs in order to support them. Our job is to say yes to the library, and if we have those available funds, or we've raised the money in a restricted way for programs, we administer those funds back to the library. So on the Branch Equity Fund, there was sort of a brainstorm. There had been a tradition of friends groups, various friend groups, not all, donating to the foundation to support summer reading programs that which Mark referenced, which the library administers every summer. And they would obviously want it to go towards their particular branch's summer reading program, which is fine. But when we're talking about smaller gifts, it's really hard for the foundation to accept small restricted gifts and then go through the administrative issues of making all those gifts happen. And, typically if we take a restricted gift, it's usually a larger sum. So we created the Branch Equity Fund as a way for individual friends groups to support the foundation's work, the library's work through the foundation, where it would be equitable across the entire library system. So bringing the entire library system, so whether your friends group or whoever donated money, your branch would still get the $2,000 a year to support your programs. And some friends groups took this on and said, that's wonderful, and we are generous, and we have extra money, and so they've given us larger amounts of money for the fund, and then some don't have, or haven't been able to raise, or haven't, and so they've had to give less. And the foundation, because we think this is a great program, but also our job is to say yes to the library, and Rich and his team prioritized this as a program they wanted to see happen. So we knew it was unrealistic to have any one entity fund the entire thing. We said, hey, friends, if you can raise $30,000, we'll match that $30,000 and
We can do this together. It'll be a great kumbaya moment and bring the foundation and the friends together, as well as with the library, and everybody will be happy. Clearly, they're having some struggles, maybe raising the money, whatever it might be. But and we're here to help, and we've got some ideas on what they can do in their communities, and we can talk to them about raising money. But again, the intrinsic value of what the Friends brings is so much more than a few dollars here or there. They are the ones who advocate for the $70 million that you're going for every year with your budget. They're the users of the library. They're the fabric of our community, and we love them regardless of whether checks are coming in or not. So the future of the program doesn't hinge on whether the Friends are able to raise $10,000 a year, $30,000 a year, whatever it might be. It hinges on the priority that the library feels the program fits under the available funds that the foundation has to give away every year, and then the decisions that are made at that point. So hopefully that helps clarify what the fund is all about.
I think so. So at $60,000, then you have an equal amount that goes to every library.
Yeah, so we
in the
do
system.
$500 quarterly gift cards. They are correct. They are gift cards. Has a nice little DCPLF brand on them. It says Branch Equity Fund. And it goes to every branch and then 4 divisions within MLK. So it's 30 total. And typically when the foundation raises money from outside entities that is a restricted gift, especially anything over $10,000, we take an 11% administrative cost because we are a business and we need to keep our lights on and we need to pay salaries and accountants and all these wonderful things. For this particular program, we don't do that. Because we see the value in engaging the Friends in this way in order to make it happen. So, Mark and I are going to huddle. We're certainly here to support. I think the community, we've used this in some of our own fundraising pitches, some of our direct marketing, some of our thing. They get it, right? It's real simple to understand. Like, we don't have a lot of real simple fundraising pitches. We don't have we don't raise money for collections, for instance. So we don't say, at this point, we might need to, which is a whole nother issue, but we don't have you give the foundation $100 and then 3 books are purchased, or you give us $100 and half an ebook is purchased, or, whatever it might be. So this is a really simple concept that shows, and honestly, the program is beloved because it does great things in the community. It helps morale within library staff. It gives staff agency over their own funds. They're not running around asking for permission, and they get to react and respond to their branch's needs in a really hyper-local way, but yet still maintaining this fundraising notion of coming together as an entire system. And that's the view the Library Foundation mostly takes, right? We're not typically raising money for one specific branch. We're raising money for the system as a whole.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the clarification, I've seen it do great things. I've
Sure.
also seen it buy pizza, which is equally important sometimes.
It can, especially if that pizza is bringing teens into our buildings
Exactly.
and giving them something to do other than cause trouble.
But I think the most valuable thing is, Christy, to your point, it's equitably spread throughout each branch, regardless of who contributes or not.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to the Mount Pleasant Friends who have had their very successful T-shirt sales and have raised a ton of money. And when we kicked this off, they made a 3-year commitment of $10,000 a year, which covered a third of what the Friends have given every year. And so that's one particular Friends group that really stepped to the plate. There's others that have as well, but they should get some flowers for that.
How can we duplicate that entrepreneurial drive? That's what we should talk about. But all right, Rob, what else do you have?
Okay, what else do I have? So a couple of really great things are happening. One, next year's exhibition, which it has not been announced yet, right? June 30th, we'll be press releasing it, something of that nature. But it's allowed us to be working with a group that we were introduced to through a board member's organization that is going to help us and has a ready-made audience to actually sell sponsorships as opposed to just philanthropic gifts. And that's really great for us. It's sort of the next step. We've certainly dabbled in the sponsorship world, but this is really taking a harder look at the value proposition for corporations as they engage in some of our work with this exhibition that's going to not just be an exhibit here at MLK across the city and in the region, but we'll also have programming associated with it. And I had a call with them last week, and we've got a great prospect list, about 50 to 70 potential prospects, you know, ranging from the 6 figures down to the 4 figures. We think we can raise a lot of money for this, and then do a lot of good with it. But there's some really interesting points that are coming out of it, and some data points that I think we'll be able to leverage as we continue to raise money and grow our corporate support. We have great corporate support from our friends at Monumental and Pepco and our neighbors and folks that get it and have been getting it for a while. But I think this is going to open our doors to some consumer products and some of the larger brands that will realize that the library is driving participation, is driving eyeballs, consumers, and folks that they want to be in front of. So I'm really excited about that. Obviously, more information in a public forum will come later, but very excited about that. We've also put a letter of inquiry into a national foundation to support our archives here in the People's Archives. We don't know where that's going to come, but we were solicited by them because we are a special entity here at the People's Archives and a special city with a deep-rooted history, and specifically Black history. So we're really excited about where that potentially could go. And so while we've had gifts from Carnegie and from others in the past, this is something that my friends at other foundations around the country will be very interested in, because as these national foundations start taking a look at libraries, it's pretty exciting. We've also, I'm trying to think of the other, like, what I've been finding is we've had some really interesting donor conversations. As I mentioned earlier, not every dollar we raise is the same. I would love to have a couple $1 million every year to decide how we spend it. 60 grand to the branch equity, 30 grand over here, 50 grand over here. Rich, everything you need is there. But we don't have that. We have to go out and we have to match philanthropic interests. We have to match the corporate and the philanthropic goals of our donors with what's happening here at the library without bending here at the library. We have to match it, but we can't change our mission, and we never should and never will. With that being said, I had some great new conversations with donors who were close to closing. One with the Center of Accessibility, a family who's looking at a 6-figure gift to support programming there. And what that conversation did was allow for me to have some great conversations with the center here, and learned about some things that they've always wanted to do that they haven't had the ability to pilot. And some programs that I'm really excited about that, if they come to fruition, will be because we were able to match that. So coming up with and funding programs that are new